absent. And Barry. May I have a motion to accept his absence? Luann, second. All in favor? Any opposition? You have the minute. Actions update. Motion to accept. Second. After all in favor? No opposition. Public comment? I don't think we have any comments. Got it. Oh, no, actually, we have Nicola. Any updates for the back liaison planning commission?
Yeah, we have two brief ones. I think Ben will be able to kind of lead some of the PowerPoint there. And it was but I think there was somewhat light on there, but it's kind of nice to kind of keep you all updated as some of the bigger things happening in the area.
Yep, so really, just two to update, and one's kind of in the future, the other's not exactly stormwater updated, so keep that in mind. The council had their first meeting, back to break on August 15th, and there was no real rezoning cases, of any stormwater issues kind of talked about then. And then September 5th was past Tuesday. The one case was a fairly large, development near Hodge Road and News River on the eastern side of town. That's been kind of knocking around the council table for a few months now, so that finally got approved. There's one coming up at the end of the month on the planning commission agenda that could potentially have some floodplain stormwater issues. So the first one that was approved on Tuesday night, Z1620, 531 acres on the southeastern side of town. This was part of, well, the southeast area study encompassed this tract, so that's kind of what the council was waiting on to kind of do, to kind of see. County now, and it's going to be annexed to the city, and going from a rural community area more to a mixed use of townhomes, single family detached, and commercial uses like shopping center and things like that. So pretty much building a whole neighborhood out here. And what they created with this rezoning was a planned development district or a master plan. Some of the old school folks may not remember that process from back in the day. So it's basically a little more than just a blanket rezoning. It's kind of got different areas of development that they want to see patterns in as far as planned development district that we've had pretty much since the UDO was passed in 2013. So it's 531 acres that we sneeze at. But it is bounded by this creek here and the News River. So there are some floodplain and buffer stuff, but they'll be staying out of the floodplain for our ordinance. They'll have to comply with our floodplain ordinance as it sits today. And when they come to permits as well, they're not guaranteed the regulations today for the life of the project. So, and as I shared with Commissioner Hill yesterday, this is something that's probably going to be a long process to get built out. It's not going to happen overnight. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to build this area out. So any questions on this one? And just because the size, that's why I pulled them.
I guess go back to your comment about stormwater, so they build out, but they build out to the regulations at the time of the build out.
Yeah. So they didn't put any guarantees in their planned development district to guarantee stormwater regulations as they are today. So
I just wanted to emphasize, I think it was kind of interesting, just kind of seeing limitations, but there wasn't a special kind of overlay or anything that would have any additional parameters right now. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct.
So just kind of seeing that, yeah, with that large plan in place, where that ends up. Yeah, just given the size of it, it's
Definitely in the southeastern section of town, this is our only area that's east of the News River. So that would be distinct as well. So.
And I don't know if we talked about it yesterday, but looking at some of the, given the size of it and have the plan they're going to do, are there any kind of stormwater studies anticipated for that area, or is that kind of included with the southeast area study?
As far as overall studies, they've got basics in their illustrations now, but they'll have to kind of, as they develop they're gonna be doing a study for our rule. They won't necessarily being like an overarching stormwater management plan for the whole development.
Right.
It'll probably be per phase if I had to guess.
Okay,
They propose any additional buffer widths or anything like that.
They do not.
That's gonna be my question too. I'm just noticing on the map that there's quite a lot of waterways coming through this map, and I'm assuming that the checkered areas are the 50-foot restricting buffer, and so those are the floodplains.
Yeah.
So my question was about sort of your numbers on stream lengths that are in that area, and what percentage of those are gonna get the 50-foot base buffer, and which are more ephemeral and might not be getting that restricting buffer.
Yeah, so pretty much, it's not 100% accurate as far as IMAPS is. Pretty good estimate that you're gonna have an issue for a buffer line, but that's not set in stone because, that'll have to be, looked at by the state when they come to permits to make sure and how far up those buffers go.
And the developer didn't proffer any additional buffers or open space.
Didn't. I mean, there's some open space for like amenity areas and things like that, but they didn't offer any specific open space or buffering because of the trees.
What's their current?
It's pretty much, farmland or one house per acre. Type of development, rural residential.
So the number lets you know that this was originally proposed in 20.
Mhm.
I guess what took so long?
It didn't get to council actually until the end of 2022, so I'm not sure if, because once they apply, they get that number, so I don't know if they were going through different neighborhood meetings and then going through planning commission. Didn't take that long, but council, it's been about 9-10 months now, so I'm not sure what exactly. Once they got to council, they wanted to see the southeast area study complete before they were gonna rule on this.
Okay.
The next one is kind of a get ready future type thing. This is gonna be heard at the September 26th Planning Commission. As of now, that schedule's not locked in, so that could be out farther. It's not gonna be any sooner than the September 26th. Did I say November or September? September 26th, Planning Commission meeting. This case is interesting because it's 2 lots, but they're looking to develop together. And it's got an old master plan on it from the 90s that shows like an 11 lot, single family subdivision development on there. And so this came in 2021. Some of you may recall, we weren't doing these updates like this, but you may just like remember it. And they were looking to develop this more dense, like an R6 issue here. And this property here is almost entirely floodplain and it's undeveloped, so they would not be able to get into any of the floodplain area here. But with their 2021 application, they were looking to cluster development on this lot. But what they're running into issues is that the adjoining neighbors who are not very dense, they're in the, they're technically ETJ, they're not in the city, and they're more of a one house per acre type development pattern. So they were not happy about the clustering of like R6 townhomes right here on this lot, especially this neighbor right here, which visiting their lot, I can totally see why. And what you can't see on this map is that once you get to the floodplain area, this lot drops way up. Like there's a huge slope, like a 20-foot slope difference from here to here, basically. So a lot of issues with this lot. And as far as I know, they're looking to still stay mostly out of the floodplain. There's been talk of doing a flood study and maybe a variance to kind of look at some other areas, but that wouldn't be part of the rezoning because the rezoning just kind of gives them development rights, not locks them into a plan. But I'm anticipating, since this was denied in 2021, that it'll be contentious because I'm sure the neighbors aren't sold on it now, but maybe they are, I don't know, 2 years later. So. But a lot of floodplain, the Walnut Creek Greenway trails right through here, people have been on it. Avon Ferries up here, along the streets down here. But once it gets through Planning Commission, probably as I was talking to Commissioner Hill about, the first time it would probably be on the city council public hearing agenda would probably be the first meeting in November. Because I can't see this being like a afternoon public hearing because there will be some neighbors upset about it. So that usually elevates into an evening public hearing, so. But that's the very first time I can be for a public hearing, since they're not going to planning commission until the early end of September. All right, if there's any questions on this one or issues you'd like us to bring up to planning commission, since we are kind of far ahead, especially either contact me or Wayne or Scott. And we're happy to take those to the planning commission or to the city council.
Thank you.
Representative, good afternoon, Commissioner. Pleasure to be here this afternoon in support of Wayne and the team. In terms of stormwater staff updates, none to report today, but we hope to bring you good news next time. If we have some roles that we're in the process of filling right now as we continue to grow the team and support the community stormwater services. So look for those to come next time. In terms of high priority topics, we've got several items. I'd like to start by introducing Satwana Purtle is here today. She's our new City of Raleigh Emergency Management Director in the fire department. Thanks for joining our team, Satwana. And we would like to bring forward just awareness for the commission about the Wake County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which is about to kick off, as we understand, and we're going to be a participant in this. This is it's led by the county, but the City of Raleigh, other municipalities within their county are part of that plan. And Satwana, I'll turn it over to you for any comments on it in that regard. I think you and your office will be leading that for us, and we'll be supportive of you and the team on that.
Yes, we will. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Satwana Purtle. I'm the Assistant Director of Emergency Management for the Raleigh Fire Department. And thank you for having me here today. So I was brought to my attention that the Wake County, that they're in the process of updating their hazard plan. So what I did was reach out to my counterparts, because Wake County, they do have emergency management counterparts. And so the information that I received from them is that they did receive grant to update this plan. And they're currently in the process of running that information by the state. So the state is determining how to spend those monies. And once we receive additional information from Wake County, we'll move forward with that process. So I did identify a couple of point of contacts from the Office of Sustainability and our stormwater counterparts to update Raleigh's portion of the plan. If I do come across something, or we do collectively believe that we should incorporate different departments, we'll reach out to the respective departments at that time. So additional information should be forthcoming, and I'll look to further collaboration with the team. Thank you.
Great. Okay. We worked very closely with Satwana and team on the recent tracking of Hurricane Tropical Storm Idalia. And I think that was a modest event, really a non-event for us here. But it's an example of tracking hazards that may affect and do affect Raleigh and Wake County areas. So that's one example. We do have a quick update for you on Hurricane Lee in just a second. I'll turn it over right now though to Megan Walsh, who is here from our water quality team. We've got two projects to highlight upcoming. We have a public meeting for the Worthdale Park Stream Restoration Project, which is an ARPA funded project in terms of construction. So we're thankful for the support from ARPA for that one. And then the Trash Drought Junior. So Megan, if you would give us a few highlights on those items.
Sure, thanks very much. So the Worthdale Park Stream Restoration meeting is scheduled for October 4th at Worthdale Park Community Center. And in advance of that, we put up a survey just to try and gauge how residents use the park, which will help inform the design. We are in roughly the 90% design phase, and we're expecting the project to go to construction in 2024. So we're hoping for a good turnout and to get some input on the design and how we can finalize that design. As well as we, for the item, the placement license and access license agreement with Sound River. The original agreement was going to expire in October, and we worked, and it was approved at the September 5th City Council meeting in order to get that agreement to go on indefinitely with just a yearly update on if they want to continue to operate the Trash Truck Junior at the Walnut Creek Wetland Center.
Thank you. Man, it's really a great partnership with the city and Sound Rivers in this case on the device that helps to protect water quality. So thank you for those updates. And Satwana, thank you for joining, and will be a lot more to come in terms of our Wake County EM plan going forward. So that's by Satwana. We have a few projects, those prior to construction. You can notice, I believe Megan says that one opened for bids even just today, the Millbrook project, I think opened today. So we're gonna have more and more construction projects ramping up, so look for that list to grow in the coming months as well. As we've been doing a lot of planning and design in the last several months or so. But those are our updates for those items.
All right. Thank you so very much. Any question?
Now, we'll go to the next item. And both of these are drafts in the FY 24 annual work plan. These were our notes that we started last time. We covered those this time. We did get some comments via email, so we appreciate those and can certainly review those. But this is open for any and all comments on both of these documents. We have plenty of time here for a relaxed discussion. One is a highlight of what we think is excellent work of the commission and the stormwater team from FY 23. Ariel has led this report for us, and I've never seen a better annual report. Ariel, they're always excellent. She's just elevated it to a new higher level for us. So thanks for that great work. So we're here to take any comments first on the annual report for FY 23. We can kind of walk through that. Matt has pulled it up for us. Thank you, Matt. So we highlight some of the major projects over this last year. As you can see here, I won't go through those in detail. We can take any questions on those if you like. Continue to identify a number of different projects, infrastructure, as well as lake projects. This is the one that is in process right now, the conversion of the Upper Durant Lake to a wetland system. This is, as we talked last time from Camp Pond, this is Upper Durant. It's going to be converted from a lake to a wetland. So it's one of the, in fact, this was the very first project under the Lakes policy, the new Lakes policy. The drainage systems program, of course, we're going to do some more projects today from Chaz. That's ongoing good work there. Many projects that we're designing. Very new stream stabilization program policy just approved last during fiscal year 23, I believe, Chaz. It's the first set of projects there are coming together. More exciting programs here, the buffer builder bag program. Say that 3 times. Stream bank, repair workshops. This is really, Ariel has really done a fantastic job here, sort of before and after of several of our situations that really are visually impactful. I know from the water quality, a lot of made them from water quality team. Hey, Heather, a lot of great water quality work, GSI. Here's the picture of the smack again, the GSI 2 Water Creek Wetland Center. During fiscal year 24. Many items there. We can kind of move through this, but a lot of GSI related water quality. I hope what you see, one theme in here is that the integrated program is what we're pursuing. Water quantity, dealing with flooding hazards, water quality, GSI emphasis, equitable emphasis across our program as well, and all these services that we're doing. Another excellent sort of before and after. We'll say this after here, just so that this is a rendering. So if we were projecting this, going to look like this or very close to that. Raleigh Stormwater Awards. Again, this continues to be a very well received program, but we're also getting interest from others outside of Raleigh about this type of program. Even as far away as Tempe, Arizona is asking about this program. So really an excellent program for Raleigh Stormwater Awards. We mentioned equity inclusion, which is really, we're trying to integrate that into everything that we do, from our projects to our services to customer engagement, citizen engagement. Flood related warning system, we talked about emergency management and tracking of daily recently and upcoming release. So that work continues there. Kelly. We do have still what we consider a modest stormwater utility fee that supports all of this. So that's the section around the utility fee, and it was adjusted slightly for fiscal year 23. The coder on Crabtree Creek there really raising the awareness of flooding hazards, in this case for Crabtree Creek, but a very well received display out there near the Crabtree area. Well, before and after here, some of the great work in managing stormwater control measures around the city. The city improvements here we're making Yes, we go. All right, MS4, municipal separate storm sewer system. Let's have to go through that one. Asset management, doing a lot with identifying what these assets are, what their condition is, and prioritizing the repair work and trying to make those repairs at just the right time, not to wait, not too early, not too late, but just at the right time. That helps us to make sure that it's functional, first and foremost, but also optimizes the cost for our assets. A lot of great work by the asset management team. Of course, our stormwater maintenance partners housed here in this facility, doing a great job with all of their equipment and their assets to repair the system and maintain the system. Thank you, Matt. We're just scrolling through this perfect. More projects to highlight here. This is some of the work that our TFS team has actually done in-house. In one project, it's going to be proposed to you today, at least one project, from DA Transit Systems will be done in-house with our TFS partners. So just really great partnership with them. Part of our team. Watershed planning. A lot of our work in engaging residents in the community about what we can do over time to make improvements. A lot of really good engagement taking place there. Our current project is Rocky Branch and Central Walnut Creek. Kitchen House is recently wrapped up with great success and have already identified some projects to put into our capital plan that have come from the Harris Knight. I'm sorry, from the Harris Knight study. We do continue to manage lakes as mentioned. Several listed here are in this for finance. Education and outreach. Lots of education and outreach. We really want to highlight the commission's engagement in all of that work. Schools, internship programs. You heard from Alex Lynn, our most recent intern for Partnership Raleigh. In the cohorts are featured there in the 2023 program and really just doing a great job of intern support. And our commission. So we'll have an updated photograph after the meeting, if that's convenient for you all, we'll get that inserted here. Comments on the annual report, anything that we missed or you like the way it's presented? Carol's here to help me get feedback from this.
I just wanted to compliment the staff. I think it's a good balance between projects and programs. And the projects, of course, go across fiscal years, they're an approval of design or construction. I think it was just right, just the right balance. Thank you.
I guess I have a comment. I guess we aren't trying to put in every project, right? We're putting in a cross section of projects, right?
That's right.
It's
Generally,
clear to the reviewer that to the city councilors that there's a lot going on. And is there a way to kind of, and these are the highlights, I don't know where we do that. Maybe it's already in there.
That's a very good suggestion, Ariel. I believe we are highlighting across all of our programs. We could, if this was about the commission, sort of put in total, this is what we're doing. This is our total portfolio of projects. Maybe it's X million dollars, whatever it might be. We could do that.
I thought about a map, but then if the map is like, back to where are things happening? Is there a one pager that's like, okay, these are systems, these are stream, for the year, right?
Yeah.
But if we're not including all those, I'm just trying to figure out a way that you get some wins at the council table that says, that's my district, that's mine, that's yours. Like, that's a way to get some.
That's great feedback. We can definitely, I think we can incorporate something like that. A reasonable summary of kind of the overall plan while we continue to highlight, some of these ones that we have in the draft. That's great.
Yeah, I think maybe like an intro section, even just, I think having those statistics, again, you are doing so much about them, like just quick things. It could be like a quick pie chart or something like that, or quick kind of not listing every single project, but really just trying to get the scale of the work, whether by number of projects and cost. So I think having that intro section and having some of those infographics just to start before diving into it. And that's clear that this just scratches the surface.
That's That's right. That's great feedback. Yeah, we can look at summary charts, tables, place a highlight overall, and then also pull out some of these examples. That's great.
Yeah, the drainage assistance program kind of hits, I'm assuming it's pretty comprehensive page 4, but then some of the other stuff you're a little bit like, okay, is that quick projects that we do, or open 3, like, is there a way to do some kind of similar, just
Yeah.
summary?
I think that's excellent. We'll work on that and send out a revised draft to you all. So by the way, the current plan now is to take this to city council with your approval on the final draft by October 3rd. So we have some more time. So we're not. Even if you wanted to review it further, we could do that. But right now, October 3rd, tentatively to go back to council for the approval.
Is it also possible that this is not, you've done, this is excellent. I get lost in it, and I just get lost a little bit in the, there's so much good stuff in there. So is there table of contents, or is there a way to group that, like at the end, it's like board of commission members, internships, and rain barrels, like, well, okay, but are they as important as water quality and drainage system? So just trying to figure out how it's all, are there ways to cluster or put a, give me a direction in the front, table of contents in the front, just so I know what I'm seeing, so I don't get lost.
It could be like a twofer. You just have like the table of contents with those, pieces in there, but yeah.
I think that's great feedback. I think Aaron would like really great that the template that we're working from, I think, is a general citywide template for boards and commissions, but I think we have flexibility too to make it fit SMAC's desires. I think that's a good idea too. So we'll work on the table of contents or some other way to orient the reader to the document, because it is a pretty significant document. So it's 24 pages.
Yeah, that's significantly longer than last year's. And a lot more pictures.
Yeah, I'm on like page 12, I'm like, where am I supposed to go?
Yeah, that's good.
I'll definitely have it.
There's great suggestions. We'll make it even better. Other comments. The goal of this was to make it representative across the entire stormwater program, all the activities of the commission and across all of our program. Definitely will be better to give some summaries of the total picture that y'all mentioned, and orientation to where items are in the before. False feedback.
Outstanding job there. That's that.
So much work, take a couple of years off. That what you figure. And this is a great area. Thank you for leading that. It's a pleasure to be part of such an effort like that. It's guided by commissions.
I just want to add too, I really appreciate as a new member, this was super helpful for me to orient to all the things that are going on. And I can see just how much work that is visible and invisible that's happening. So thank you. And I think one thing that stood out to me is potentially an area for growth. And I know that a lot of attention from all of us is going towards it. Is sort of making that equity framework visible in the other pages that aren't just the equity page. I think the equity page is a really beautiful job of sort of outlining the plans and sort of what the next steps are, especially with the Raleigh Stormwater rewards. But I think it'd be great to sort of see that equity attention to equity in the other programs too, whether it be project selection, community outreach, just sort of that, showing up in places that aren't just on that one page. But I think that's room for growth, and it was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Stack. And again, thank very thankful for your excellent work and just helping us to highlight all the good work of the commission and the stormwater team. Other comments? We will work on those revisions, those improvements, and send you all out a revised draft as soon as we can, and we put that over the email. Ariel, super quick. It might be about tomorrow morning, but it's maybe next week or something. I don't know about it'll be quick.
I did have another thing, where you were showing the statistics on the maintenance unit.
Yeah.
Those are impressive, but
Yeah.
you could show the previous year too,
All that.
to show improvement, to sort of have 2 or 3 columns and show improvement.
That would be great to show trends. Yeah, we've got just essentially all of our.
Page 17, I think.
17. Yeah. Our maintenance team, we should be able to pull that, I believe, from state works.
Yeah, that
It's like our summary work over time. Yeah, the information right there is great.
I'll definitely add it.
Thank you. We're very good to work on that. It's wonderful. Show these trends, and we could even incorporate things like that over time for all of our programs, if you would like, to show improvements and trends. And as we capture more nitrogen, for example, how we're doing that over time and reducing flooding hazards, things like that. We've got a number of those items in our key performance indicators for stormwater, which we may want to bring back a presentation on how we're doing that in the future. And we could include that here.
I think that's an interesting way to go and somewhere at the end of this. I mean, it ties into the city's overall climate action plan and all these things. If you're tracking certain performance indicators, you put some cool page graphics or stormwater focus, that's another tear sheet a city councilor can take and at least have some conversation pieces that says, look at what we're doing as a city around this thing. So.
Thank you. We're planning for that. We do have a pretty broad set of key performance indicators for stormwater that rolls up into our departmental business plan, and then that rolls under our city of Raleigh strategic plans. That's all connected together. John, please think that we can probably answer this in a more robust basis for Wellington work. Very good. Well, A+. Good job for that. Thanks, Commission, for the comments on the work plan. We will move to the, I'm sorry, we'll move now to the annual work plan, looking ahead for fiscal year 24, which we're just into now, as of July 1st, and we're already off and running. So some of the things that we're proposing to put into your FY 24 work plan, you're already working on. So we're working in progress. We'll do the same thing here. This is very much just a first draft. Wayne and the staff team's ideas on initiatives that we knew were already important to the commission, as well as things that we were projecting for the next year or so. One sort of a new section to this work plan, two things actually new. And Errol's help again, we have a template from our community engagement office. So we have a new template for the look of this work plan. That's number one. And the second thing that we potentially would like to add is sort of what are the highest priorities for the commission for FY 23? As you know, your work plan is very robust. It's often multi-year in nature. So we thought it might be helpful right up front here to think about priority work items for this fiscal year 24. So that's a new addition to the plan for this year. And then we do mention the rest of the plan, the comprehensive themes in the document as well. Just to get started in this, get back at real quick. Okay, did you get back to this? Oh, by the way, we did get a comment that this was a nice feature. I agree. And so perhaps we want to extend these awareness opportunities or art opportunities to other storm drains. So could be something that we amplify and see if we want to comment on that already.
Or at least put a reference to where that is. So, caption.
Oh, good note. Is that Nashville? Yes. I didn't think this was in Nashville. We'll get it done. So what I'll do, I'll take all your feedback. I'll flip to multitasking between different media here. This is my favorite paper style with some notes. So we'll try to take comments on that. But overall, is there any, almost want to just ask around, is there anything that we missed at all, either in the priorities for 24 or in the comprehensive work plan themes that the commission would like us to amplify, add, etc. The first item here that we got is our attention, and that was just mentioned in the report to our attention to equity. We're seeking to build this in everything that we're doing, operational wise, project selection wise, engagement wise, and really to the entire community. So there's a lot here in this first one. We're going to come back to you with an update in a few months on what we are doing in that regard. Second one is also coming back to you soon, an update on our new NPDS municipal permit. We're negotiating that with the state right now. And October, November, I think that's coming back soon. October.
Yeah, the comment period, just remember. Yeah.
Okay.
So it should be first week in October, it should be better.
Okay. Okay. So we'll hear more about that pretty soon. It's more of our feeling from our new permits. That's item 2. Everything associated with our in a sport permit. 3, another grade 41, and basically a review of our proposed budgets in this case, FY 25, next fiscal year, with operational infra projects. All things are really bad. That kind of comes with the discussion around level of service as well. So with the budgets, there's always different levels of service that we consider. Design manual, you're going to hear from Sally in just a few minutes on where we are with that. And so it's certainly a priority for us this year. Ongoing efforts to have a local floodplain program. We do have that already. Essentially make it a more formal floodplain program where we're a partner with the state and with FEMA, essentially having a city Raleigh floodplain programs or property and technical program, community program. So see that in there. E-credit program, you've heard some about that already, maybe a few months ago. We're continuing that work to enhance the e-credit program for the stormwater utility. So we see that as an item of interest. This one here acknowledges those ongoing reviews of drainage assistance projects, stream projects, and rainwater rewards projects. So just regular items that every few months the commission will see and approve. So we've got that was articulated here. So we potentially see those as maybe priority items for the commission for 24. This lists the rest of the portfolio, and not that items above don't link in with these by any means. Oftentimes they do, but this just gives more of the story for what we're doing.
Are you six about the FEMA line? Are you trying to do what Mecklenburg County's doing?
Yes,
Separate your own.
yes. Mecklenburg
You have
County.
to be in charge of that.
Yeah, that's what Mecklenburg County is going to.
Yes.
Flip it back.
Yes, so we do the repository for mapping, we go map updates, and we process all the map revision.
Exactly. That's our vision, is to have that program like that for all. Provide really benefits of more timely floodplain mapping. I think a lot of reviews of floodplain permits can be handled right here locally. More benefits as well.
Can you share a little more about the role of SMAC's role with the MS4 permit review? It sounds like the public comment period just closed, and so we're looking towards the finalization of that permit. What is the kind of role of SMAC in that process?
Yes, yes. I might need some help from someone from the water quality team on that one. I don't think, we'll speak to that.
We're gonna be language just tax review, like see changes between the old permit.
And the other thing too is we really write the stormwater management plan, which is looking at that permit umbrella. We oftentimes have a lot of flexibility in how we do that, and that's really where the commission's input is very vital. That's kind of says how we're going to do the permit effectively. That's definitely a lot, I'll say, more in our purview of writing that permit. Oftentimes with negotiations will come based upon state requirements. We can then write our management plan for approval by the state. Consistent with the permit. Any stormwater priority themes that we may have missed for priorities for 24? We tried to think about a work plan that would maybe stretch us at the same time not overstretch us. That was part of the reason for sort of breaking down the priority items versus the rest of the work plan. It attracts more focus. These other items we will continue to provide updates as we go. What we're warning, regulatory programs. So on and so forth. I've already made these notes right here. Attention to equity. With our climate action plan in the city, household resizing with that. Perhaps if this is on stormwater key performance indicators, we do have those. And an excellent item back to what you and reference to where that.
Great, Scott. Thank you for all the effort. The question I have for the commission, this is our work plan. It has SMAC at the top. SMAC is woven throughout. Staff did a lot of work on this. how can we as a commission have more ownership? One of the things that we started earlier this year, it didn't last so long, is that at each meeting, we had the work plan in front of us. I feel like, and this is my fourth cycle, that we do this, and then it's a pause, and we come around this time next year, new fiscal year 25 work plan. And I feel that we as a commission can have more ownership around it. Now, this is my opinion, you may feel that perhaps we as a commission do have more ownership. And my question is, what are some things we can do, have more ownership of the program, of the work plan, to keep it before us? And maybe there's some stretch metrics. I know you put in, I think in each of the 6 sections that there is some stretch. That's my question to all of you. Do you think we have ownership over it?
We could have it as a standard agenda item.
Okay.
Look at those 8, just to get a quick update on those 8 at the beginning of each meeting or end
Yeah.
each meeting. That would help me.
Yeah.
Kind of keep those.
Good idea.
I think that ties in, my question, which is probably just a new person question, that where did all the work happen? Seems like a lot of great initiatives and certainly some that I'd be interested in working on, and I'm wondering if that's something that happens in work groups outside of these meetings, or if that is something that folks are interested in, what the precedent is there.
I think the way we're set up is unique in that, we're a commission appointed by council. There's a separate stormwater staff, that really do the lion's share of the legwork. Then they bring that to us, for discussion and then to support and to council. So in some respects, we're a gatekeeper, because there are things that happen out there. So that gets at my question about ownership, I think, or engagement. And your point, yes, it's good. And maybe we could discuss Nicola's position is new, as we talked about, what's the gap between planning commission and stormwater commission. And perhaps we need more of that, not that all of us need to be liaison, between certain entities, but for yours, in your case, I feel, your position in talking with planning commission, has given us a lot of information. And maybe that's a way of engaging.
From time to time, the commission has also had a subcommittee to look at specific topics. For example,
The GSI.
that's
And
GSI.
UDO was, I think that's the last one, right?
I think it was, and maybe before that, the integrated project prioritization model.
Yeah.
So from time to time, for themes of interest, such as GSI and project prioritization, the committee is, assigned a group to work directly with staff and then report back to the full commission on the recommendation.
The question, do we have themes of interest? The last one I remember was, that was 2021, so it's been 2 years. Here's what others think.
For example, last meeting, we talked about how we could promote and expand the rainwater storage program to more commercial.
Right.
Let's go through that. So the first one is around making equity operational. Everything that we're doing, day-to-day service delivery, how we engage, how we prioritize projects. deliver those projects, how we fund those projects, fee credits, all of that. So that's meant to be the. Within that, you know, I think. Based on commission discussion from last week as well. There are options to have a commercial part and residential and maybe different requirements or policies around each one of those categories of customers potential. We talked about the permit, let's just go off the screen right there. This is our budget and level service review. We've put a few meetings back, at least a few, Max engaged on seeing our budget recommendations, rate recommendations, corresponding level of service recommendation. We added item 4 as requested several months ago by the commission. Right now, this presentation is planning to come back to the commission around November, our drainage assistance program, our capacity, our delivery, resources, that type of thing. So that's sort of a separate item, but it really ties into ultimately budget. Design manuals on 5, floodplain program 6, credit program 7, 8 are all the ongoing projects.
Part of number 8, you have a method for tracking. You know, you go back to these projects a year later, see if they're still functioning. Have they improved the situation?
That's a great note. We certainly, as we do drainage assistance and downstream projects, we're getting easements on those. So they're becoming part of the city system. So we're responsible for that. In terms of a more formal assessment of those, perhaps something that we could amplify. You know, we're going to take care of them, make sure they function, perform as designed in perpetuity. And perhaps a more formal assessment of how they were performing. That might lead to changes in design. Things like that.
Right, some of it, like your rain gardens and stuff like that, have to be inspected occasionally. But, you know, some of these pipes and things like that, maybe just someone go by once a year. Make sure everything's still functioning as designed.
This is what the type of review. I'll highlight this as VA and street stabilization, but it could really be for any other projects as well. Other projects. That's
I think that leads into a feedback loop also. City part of the construction side of it, just as the program goes, it's got to build more capacity. Our lessons learned.
Yeah, that was what I was getting at for the city council to see the benefit. Like they're actually value to them.
I think that's great. Adaptive management, as we learn, each project we do, we want to do even better than the last one. And each one that we do, we're doing it the best that we can based upon what we know at that time. So have more intentional looking at it.
Picture question. What it is, a lot of words here, right? And there's just a ton of words, and I say, I'm a counselor, I'm not reading this. So, is there a way that you could say a priority is increase or improve operational, equity costs, stormwater operations or something? Like, how can we bullet the things? 3 priorities, 5 priorities, start to throw bullets under or paragraphs in there, that's fine. Once again, I'm thinking about the tear sheet for a council member to go through and say, okay, they're focused on these 3 things, or there's 7 things, I don't know. There's a lot in here, which I think you guys did. You did a brain dump. It's exactly, you went off of what we told you. How then we can come to something.
Great feedback.
Maybe even at the initial starting to have like the first part of it bold or have that, if it's known list, but just so you can kind of quickly scroll down, maybe that's maybe the simplest solution.
Each one of them has just a little simple
Yep, tagline there. Yeah.
Fantastic. I would prepare to. And so what I take away from that is, yeah, make it more easy to follow, quick to follow, maybe even more images, bolding items, and then there can maybe be discussion if folks would want to move to more discussion, but they can see what the items are very quickly. Because, yeah, we do have to kind of look at it a little bit, see what we're talking about even here. It's great feedback.
I think one way we can take more ownership is there's items like 8A, it says periodically review. I think we should set definitive periods to review.
Okay.
Say every 6 months, we're gonna review these policies and recommend policy revisions. That way it's on our calendar. We have to review the drainage assistance, twice a year.
I really like that idea. In a similar way, maybe there's a way to have periodic reviews or discussions about sort of amendments or recommendations having to do with sediment erosion control and stormwater. Of course, I saw those on the priority list of things that we'd be giving feedback on, that maybe in a more forward-thinking way, we could be dreaming big about what those things could look like down the line from GSI to activity amendments.
Continue looking ahead, creating vision for the future, even as we make the best of what we're currently reviewing. This is great. Are there any topics, first for FY24 or for the overall comprehensive stormwater work plan that we did?
Under community engagement, I know, that's been quite a bit of time holding listening sessions. How far in advance are those planned and can it involve SMAC? I find out about these when I get the email that the city sends out. But I get it when everybody else gets it. But I know staff has thought about this before everybody else gets it. And so if we know you're gonna be at Workdale or, someplace else, how far in advance you have planned that, we have that privy to it, and we can put it on our calendar and then be a part of that. But at least on the community engagement side, I know I have not been as active in that, attending some of these events.
Great, I like that. Areas where they to facilitate Barbara. There's really the entire team is about community engagement, but give the commission, hey, here's our game plan, if you will, for the next period of time and a chance to weigh in on that and help us to prioritize how we do that, how we reach all the communities. Any unique practices or additional practices that we might need to incorporate. That's really good.
I think it gives us a chance to see what you guys are seeing in the community. At least the opportunity. We don't want to be, you guys are technical experts, we're not there to answer questions for the city on the past and making sure we clear that line.
Yeah.
So it is really great because part of just the conversation is that, wow, that's interesting that they brought that up. Put that in the back of mind.
I will add just one, we have added, recently is that we are being more intentional about moving in council members. So there's a project that is in their district, we make sure to loop them in and send them emails in case they're available to attend. So we can definitely make sure that all of you are, on our invite list, so that when we do send out like a calendar sort of poll that we do on wellness, and you guys can be part of that and plan accordingly.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's exciting right there. And early involvement, helping us to even shape the type of engagement that we carry forward.
Always subcommittee, I think the creative department Be present, okay, at the subcommittee. Okay.
That's among the items of the commission's review and approval. For example,
Talk about the bond program. I would say,
yes,
at least I think Parks and Rec Commission has been enabled body that created some committees geared towards that as well, because they are not city staff. Different lens in which the bond project could be guided.
I think that's another topic. In fact, even today, we're meeting and talking about that very topic with our finance department. We continue to plan on that in the next year or two. So, yeah, the commission, I think that would be a great way to amplify the importance of those products with community, with the commission's involved. Lots of things. You're gonna turn this next draft around by tomorrow, but you'll probably beat me to that, but this is great. Representative, as you mentioned, this is the commission's work plan. These are some ideas from staff for your consideration. We can update it however you want. Take as much time to make it's your document.
Just comment on the subgroup. I don't think our bylaws stipulate how that's formed because it's a time certain.
I don't think it speaks specifically, certainly you can appoint those and whatever period of time those groups would report back to the full commission on recommendation. Yeah, I think the only times I can remember are the GSI and the project prioritization. These would be great.
Now, your plan is to present this at the October 3rd commission meeting.
October.
Our council.
City council.
City council meeting.
If it's acceptable after we incorporate the improvements from the commission today. Just send that back out with you. We could even receive comments in between meetings from you all, everybody in the loop and make changes based upon that. We won't take it to the council until you, commissioner, accepting the doctor's.
You have to move forward, but we meet after the council meeting. Because once modifications are made, we don't do electronic. The commission has to convene in person.
I think so.
So, and it's your recommendation that we pass a resolution that these additions are made, and you present it. Obviously, if we wait till the next meeting, we'll pass the council meeting.
We probably could do that second week in October to do that. We could certainly do that if that would be the commission's desire, hold it for that. At the same time, if you would be confident enough in our discussion and our notes for us to work that into your plan, send it back to you. Could always have in there the contingency that if the commission didn't support what we put together, you could hold it. At the same time, if it was good with the commission, we could carry it forward in October 3rd, as early as October 3rd to the city council.
It's a matter of how the word the motion.
Right. What are your thoughts?
You can have a first review. Right. And then once we all have a chance to review it.
I don't think we can do that.
Josh, is that in the?
Because the council, we voted on that right before you came on, Josh.
I think that's right.
In COVID, that was a different scenario, but now we as a commission voted that we have to meet in person and you have to give, is it a week's notice?
I think so. It's some amount of time
Yeah.
notice. That's right. That's a good point. We do have the,
Yeah, so it's
Yeah, virtually.
it when you have to do.
it could be a conditional recommendation, with incorporation of the discussion from today. The revised plan will be carried forward to council as early as October 3rd. At the same time, we're very happy to, carry it to the meeting after that, if you'd like to see it in October.
From your standpoint, the October 3rd, is there a reason for that date? I know historically it's been that first October meeting,
Right.
but does delaying it impact the staff anyway.
And I know we're trying to get it to council this fall.
Yeah.
This September, or potentially October.
Let's sign this, that.
Oh, that, okay,
I don't think.
yeah, that's right.
They assigned each, commission different days. I think Stonewall was fine for that. Yeah.
Well, that's, I think that means we need to stick to it. To me, these documents are a snapshot in time, they're active, they're living, they're changing. Even if we were to present what is before us in the PDF on the screen, I mean, I'm fine with that. Of course, we'll pass resolution, a motion to incorporate these additional comments and send that to council on October 3rd. But I do think, since council gave us that date, it makes sense for us to stick to that date. And I'm going to hear some of your comments.
Well, I think to strengthen that, we have the mandates that we have already as a commission, right, that are pretty much black and white that we kind of already have to do. So this is just organizing our priority focus. We have a structure, a pretty solid work plan.
We haven't changed any of the 8
No.
in there.
Right.
These are more how we go about it, new things we want to do. These are more steps.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. What you see here within the priorities for 24 as well as the overall council, as well as amplifies priorities and how it's going. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm comfortable with just, yeah, with the condition, well, but just as is, as is. Okay.
And then there's stuff to talk about. I mean, I haven't found what's there now.
A fan of adding everything we just talked about, so
Okay.
saying it's fine to share council, knowing that that stuff's gonna be worked, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, people that's can. So may I have a motion that we accept, SMAC report, the SMAC, work plan. Yeah, the work plan, for fiscal year 2024 with these additions. I guess that's clear. All right, so Nicola and Ann, second, all in favor? Any opposition? Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've got those notes. Good luck. Plan for getting hopefully even better shape. Thanks, y'all.
Discussion, yes.
Good afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm Sally Hoyt, the Stormwater Plan Review Supervisor and GSI Advocate. So I'll be giving you an update on the Stormwater Design Manual project that's been going on for since before I started in the city. So I've taken over this project about a year ago. And so the focus today, next slide. Oh, yeah, you got it. Thanks. I'm going to go over the current timeline, talk about the overall document changes, talk about some specific requirement changes by chapter, and then talk about next steps for this group. So this is similar to what you saw last fall, but it has shifted by 3 months. So basically, we took 3 months longer in the internal process. So all of these things shifted by 3 months. So instead of taking it to council, in say September, we're taking it in November. There's some, I want to go over some key dates. So the public review period started 2 days ago and it continues through, we're leaving it open if anybody wants to review it on the weekend. So through Sunday, October 2nd. we will be back here in 2 months to talk to you about any changes that have been made between what went out for public comment and what is the final draft manual on November 2nd. That is what we are going to request, that you request an authorization change from council. So to start the process of adopting the new manual. Then we anticipate it going to city council in November. We would hope that city council would then refer it to the planning commission, who would refer it to the text change committee. So that's the outline of how we think that might work after it goes to council.
Is it work its way back to council? Look at text change, planning commission, back. to-
Yes. So that's actually reflected
Yeah,
here.
okay, got it.
Yes. I can't really predict those dates as well. But I think the earliest the manual would become effective would be April 1st, 2024. That would be basically if everybody that looked at it took one meeting to do so. But certainly that could be extended. So in terms of overall changes that have occurred to the manual, and I should mention that this has been in development for a while. It went out for public review initially in 2020, and then there was some level of changes made and it went out again in 2020, the summer of 2021. Those were version 1 and version 2. So we're on version 3, draft 3. So the guiding principles for that were we addressed the public comments. We didn't necessarily agree with all of them, but we addressed them all. 2 key things were in terms of avoiding duplication with professional references. So we took out some content that was easily available in free public documents. And we've tried to avoid duplication with the UDO. If the UDO was very clear about something and we didn't have the experience of people misinterpreting that requirement, then we didn't feel the need to elaborate on it. We also wanted to clarify for folks because we got just a handful of comments saying, oh, this is really hard to understand. You need to use layman's terms. And we want to clarify this document is not for homeowners. It really is for design professionals who are either submitting development plans or who are doing work for the city in terms of our. One thing we've done is remove, there was a lot of checklists in here and I love a good checklist. The manual has to be approved by city council because it is adopted by reference into the UDO. So we made the decision that the checklist didn't need to be in the manual and therefore adopted by city council. And the checklist should be a tool that can be updated as needed and available on the website. And so what we've done is move some content that was in checklist into the document itself so that then it's clear what the requirement is. The checklist will be a shorthand way to reference those requirements. The other thing we did over the past year was solicit a lot of internal feedback. So our plan review team has been very involved. We've also worked with the asset management team and the maintenance team and transportation field services. And then we actually had an internal review period for the entire Raleigh Stormwater staff. One organizational change I want to make you all aware of. There used to be 7 chapters, now there's 9. We took a very large chapter, which was about stormwater management calculations and stormwater control measure design and split it into 2. And then there was information about easements in at least 3 different chapters. And so we created a whole chapter on easements so we weren't duplicating information between those chapters. All right. I'm going to go through some requirements. I'm going to try to highlight things. Again, these are just the things that changed. So this is the requirement. This column didn't change between our existing currently affected design manual and what was it previously publicly released in version 1 and version 2. So were we changing things to begin with? And then have we changed it from what was previously publicly released in 2020, 2021 to what went out earlier this week? So, for example, version 1 introduced a new process called the lot grading plan, which is intended, really the intention was to address infill development. And, but the way it was written, it could have applied to development of single family homes at any scale. So we clarified that it's really for single family, like house by house development or infill small subdivisions. It's not for the 1,000 home subdivision that's going on in a greenfield situation instead of in an existing neighborhood. Because we think that the drainage patterns and that sort of thing on those big subdivisions is covered in the existing grading and drainage information submitted. Another thing, there was a new requirement introduced in V1 called the 10% rule. And we got a lot of feedback about the amount of calculations required for that 10% rule. And we made the decision that there was a lot of analysis required, but not necessarily a lot of benefit to the city or the citizens out of doing that analysis. And so that's why we removed that. Something that was discussed early on, but didn't actually make it into the manual, but is now in the manual. It somewhat replaces something in the current guidelines for land disturbing activity, which talks about slope setbacks and that sort of thing, is looking at a maximum vegetated slope from a stabilization standpoint. I do anticipate we will get some comments on that. Any questions about chapter 2 before I move on? This chapter 3 is fairly technical. I will highlight the first item here, which is the rainfall data. This is something we've talked to SMAC about before. Instead of having rainfall data set in stone in the manual, we're going to put it on the website. The manual references the web. That allows us to change it with professional updates that come out. So for example, we've talked to this group about the future NOAA Atlas 15 that would project future rainfall. So that's something that I anticipate we would start to reference once that data is available. So that's a change. Was in the earlier version and hasn't changed. The rest of these are all about methodology and formulas. And so I think we've included some stuff that we hadn't included before, and we've taken out some stuff we previously included. The reason for that is we did some additional information gathering about where those things are currently allowed, what the federal standards are, what the DOT standards are, and then we're allowing 2 methods that we already currently use that weren't mentioned previously. Any questions about chapter 3 before I move on? All right, chapter 4, I have 2 screens about, and that's because stormwater conveyance design or designing pipes and swales and inlets and that sort of thing is something that's not addressed in the UDO. The requirements are all in the design manual. So that there's more meaty content here, I guess I would say. So the first thing here is that we are being explicit about an HGL, which relates to how big the pipe is. what we're doing reflects current practice and general professional practice, but it wasn't in the existing manual, so we're clarifying that. The second two items, the 25-year design storm for large drainage areas and basing inlet and gutter spread on the 10-year storm, both of those were in version 1 and are not changed. Those are more conservative requirements than in our currently active manual. And we have gotten comments on both of those items. This screen is new changes to chapter 4. So, and actually this first one we're clarifying. It should have said this was changed in the previous one. We're clarifying what we mean in terms of upgrading existing systems with redevelopment. That's both in terms of capacity and condition. The second item is actually something that will make a lot of people in the development community happy and make our maintenance folks happy, which is allowing polypropylene pipe, which didn't really exist in 2002 when we wrote the previous manual, so it wasn't addressed at all. So we're going to allow that on local roads. We are also adding a requirement for mandrel testing. Mandrel is basically an object shaped like a circle that you pull through a pipe to make sure that it hasn't changed its shape. And so we'll be requiring that before we accept the pipes and the end of construction. We previously had a requirement for third-party certification, and we're getting rid of that requirement because we feel like it is covered by the mandrel testing and the new stormwater conveyance system permit. The stormwater conveyance system permit was somewhat addressed in version 1, but we're still working on the details of that, what that would look like. So now those details are in the manual. From a design standpoint, there's not going to be a difference for people. They already submitted calculations on their storm drain pipes. The difference for folks will be that we didn't currently require as-built drawings for storm drain pipes, which is a fairly common practice, and it's certainly something that's done for water and sewer pipes. So we will now be requiring as-built drawings, and we will require CCTV inspection of the pipes. So those requirements are now outlined in the manual. Any questions about chapter 4?
Is that requirement for all pipes, or is it just stuff that's in city right away?
Do you want to address that, Barbara?
Yeah, it's a requirement for entity as permits to maintain the inventory of all pipes in the system. So it does apply to pipes in the public right of way and in some private property.
Okay.
Anything else on chapter 4? Chapter 5, which is the newly split out stormwater management calcs. The new nutrient reduction calculation method, which is tied to the NUS rules, which changed on May 1st of this year. So we currently have written guidance on our website about how designers can submit things to meet those rules. And we're taking that and incorporating it with the manual. The second item is about the peak discharge design storm. The current requirement is the 2-year storm and the 10-year storm. Version 1 proposed to change from the 2-year storm to the 1-year storm. And the reason for that was that we anticipated NCDEQ was going to require that as part of the NUS rules. They changed course and did not require that. So we're going to stick with the 2-year storm at this time. These next 2 changes actually do not show up in the manual, but we've listed them on the changes we anticipate making because they would be UDO changes. So this first one about built area in the watershed overlay districts. So there's several areas in town that have additional requirements beyond the requirements throughout the city. And so the Falls Lake overlay district and the Swift Creek overlay district are two of those. The state has a term called built upon area, which is equivalent to impervious area. And but a decision was made when, at some point in time, that Raleigh would be more stringent than that. And also, and regulate what was called built area, separate from built upon area. And built area would include things that were partially impervious and partially pervious. So things like permeable pavement. So basically it limited not just the impervious area in the watershed, but also the footprint of things like decks and permeable pavement and green roofs. We're proposing, we think this is very confusing to folks to have built area and built upon area. We also think it's, well, changing this could result in slightly more disturbance. We think it would encourage folks to use things like permeable pavement. So we're proposing to replace built area with built upon area for clarity's sake, and that would actually put us more in line with the state rule.
I got another question. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you allow the use of the detail where you can use 4 inches of gravel with fabric underneath it and not? It's in that section of the built upon area definition of sheet.
We don't like right off the bat include that, but we do have a definition where folks can demonstrate something as partially impervious. But we typically refer them to the permeable pavement chapter, but we allow people to do not just permeable pavement. If they did a gravel system, if they did a sport court, or if they did synthetic turf, they could do a variety of things that cover the surface that allow water to go through, as long as the infiltration can occur underneath. So the last one here is regarding, this is regarding the requirements for the small sites that are subject to zoning-based impervious area limits. So for example, if you live in an existing neighborhood and you're zoned R10, you have a 65% threshold on your lot. If you're R4, it's a 38% threshold. And so we do reviews to enforce those thresholds. There's currently 2 methods in the UDO which people can increase their impervious limit. One of those is to build a GSI type device. We're not proposing to change that. But the second is this flood level analysis. And we, as the staff, find that it's a little bit of kind of twisting of engineering principles to do this analysis. We also think it's an equity issue because it basically allows people who can afford to hire an engineer to get a higher impervious limit. And we don't think that it's particularly protective of the downstream neighbors. So what we would propose instead is to do a peak discharge analysis, which is a very standard engineering analysis. And we think would be more protective of downstream neighbors. Any questions about chapter 5? All right, moving on to stormwater control measure design. We have added some more specific things. So for example, we have added more specific requirements for underground stormwater control measures. Those aren't addressed in the state manual that we reference. So we want to add information on that. We've also added information about pond embankments and freeboard, which gets into the embankment height, about proximity to buildings and retaining walls. And all of these requirements tie into things that are more could be more impactful to public safety. And so that's why we're being more specific on those items than we might be on other items. So for example, we currently allow SCMs under parking decks, but we're gonna require additional information than what we currently require. So for example, we'll require that there's a leak testing specification, because basically almost anything you put underground is going to leak at some rate. And so we're gonna require that you specify what is an acceptable leak rate. I want to highlight the invasive plants. Currently, that's not addressed in our manual. We've worked with our colleagues in urban forestry, and what we'll be doing is referencing, it's an NC State Extension website that identifies whether a specific species is invasive in North Carolina. So we're not specifically saying what plants you have to use, but we're saying there's certain plants can't be used in the SCM footprint. And then this final item is that we have for each type of stormwater control measure, so fire retention or wetlands or permeable pavement, we have recommendations in addition to the requirements. And those recommendations are going to be requirements for city projects. And so most of those recommendations are actually aimed at maintainability. So the goal is to make our city-owned stormwater control measures more maintainable, easier to maintain. And so there'll be recommendations for other folks, but requirements if it's a city-owned facility. Any questions about chapter 6? Chapter 7 is where we've pulled all the easement information together. So these kind of go in groups. There's these top two items, a downstream discharge easement, which is basically if you're discharging a new concentrated flow onto anywhere except the right of way, you would need an easement to put that into. And then also easements for the embankment of non-SCM dams, private dams. And that would only kick in if there's development happening on the site. Both of those were proposed in version 1, but were a little bit buried in the text. And so we have made them clearer in version 3. The third one was also proposed. The erosion hazard setback was proposed in version 1. We've actually chosen to remove that because we felt like we weren't gaining anything beyond the existing buffer rules, the riparian buffer rules for the use. So we felt that, that protection is already in place. We didn't need an additional easement. In terms of the easements for bridges and culverts and SCMs, those we've done a little bit of additions to those, mostly in consultation with our maintenance staff in terms of making sure, and this is public bridges and culverts, making sure that there's maintenance access to those structures. And then also looking at like what slope could be in a maintenance easement in order to allow equipment access. The swale easements were widened in version 1, and then we pulled them back in version 3. Pipe easements haven't changed since 2002. And then the section we've added is about what work is allowed in a stormwater easement. And this is something that wasn't previously in the design manual, and we would get a lot of questions about. And we processed a lot of design exceptions about, and so we're trying to just be really clear about what is allowed and what isn't allowed. There's still going to be a small group of things where people would have to get specific permission, but things like hand digging fence posts were going to be allowed, for example.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this, by the way. Just the downstream discharge easement piece, I'm wondering if that addresses issues like private ownership against private ownership. I know there's been some issues where the dewatering operations result in flooding on private land, but because it's a private owner causing that, there's sort of a lack of, teeth or ability to enforce any action. So does this essentially require someone who's dewatering and that dewatering operation results in flooding on the neighbor's property to get a discharge easement to cover that? Is that sort of what this is addressing?
So I'm aware of the issue you're talking about, and it's not specifically aimed at that, though it would partially cover that. We actually have another section in the design manual where we are limiting the drawdown rate. That it can't exceed the 10-year storm, because that's what the downstream systems are sized for. This more gets to, you may have seen stuff in the news about places where there's like a new development and there's a pipe that comes out and it points at somebody's house. And there might be a level spreader there, but even though the peak discharge is the same, the volume of water is higher. And so it's basically saying designate a place for it to go, for that water to go to get to its next point. We anticipate that addressing some existing, not repeating some things that have happened in the past. Other questions on chapter 7? All right, chapter 8 is. I want to highlight there was not a lot of changes in erosion sediment control. That's actually something that's going to be worked on over the next year. But one thing that we have added is a more detailed list of what needs to be included in the limits of disturbance. And we are addressing a very frequent comment that our reviewers have, which is we often get people who submit, say, for the demolition of a building, and they say, my limits of disturbance is the building footprint. And we say, you're not going to have any equipment or anything that's next to the building. So this is basically putting in a 10-foot setback. If you can tell us, realistically what area you're going to use, great. At least you need to include 10 feet. But we have reduced the version 1 said 20 feet and we've reduced it to 10. The second 2 items relate primarily to larger sites, and they're providing more protective erosion control. Any questions about chapter 8? All right, chapter 9, there wasn't a ton of changes, but there was a couple of key things. So one is that right now we require local flood studies. So FEMA only does flood studies for drainage areas at 1 square mile or more. So there's lots of land that might have flooding issues that's upstream of that. So we require local flood studies. Right now, that's based on linear feet. And so if a site has 400 linear feet of stream on their project site, we require them to do a flood study. We actually think that the linear foot basis is not the most predictive thing of whether there would be flooding issues. So we're actually changing that to a drainage area basis. So we're now going to require a simple flood study if it's over 25 acres and a comprehensive flood study if it's over 100 acres. And that leads to our second thing, which we're introducing 2 types of flood studies. So right now we only have the comprehensive type, but we recognize that there's some situations where less analysis is needed. And so for those sites, they'll be basically for the comprehensive one, people are doing the same level of detail as a FEMA flood study. For the simple one, they can use like simpler equations and that sort of thing. The other thing that we are changing is there's a change that went into effect last summer that affected flood hazard soils and the requirements on them. And we are going to say you only have to do additional study if it's over 5 acres. and at 5 acres, you have to do the simple study. Right now, some sites, even if the drainage area is small, are being pushed into doing a full study. Any questions about chapter 9?
That kind of, that's just Wayne County's. Somewhere.
Yes, but we can't call it major and minor because we already have a process that's
Yeah.
under major and minor, so we had to come up with other words. All right. So that brings us to next steps. So as you saw earlier, the public draft of the manual is open for review for the next month. If you're interested, please take a look. If you are looking at this and saying, that's all kind of beyond me, just take a look at chapter 1. Chapter 1 is the introduction chapter. We go through what are the stormwater requirements and where do you find the information related to each of them with, paragraph about the permitting process. So that might be of interest to folks. If you have any questions about what you've seen here today, feel free to get in touch with myself or with Ben Brown. And Ben will probably just tell me to call you. But, as we discussed earlier, the next time we come back in November, we're going to be moving this on to City Council and Planning Commission. So if there's any concerns that you all have, we want to make sure that those are things we're discussing. And then along those lines, be prepared that when we come back in November, that we will have a final draft that we would like to send to council to recommend a text change to incorporate it. Any overview questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that obviously a ton of work with your team and you kind of review all of that. What's the kind of feedback and kind of level of comments? And it's been internally a ton of reviews, but what's the level of external comments that you've received so far? You can just kind of ballpark to kind of give us.
I would say we've gotten over 100 comments on version 1 and 2.
Okay.
It hasn't been out.
Oh, yeah,
long
that's
enough.
3. Yeah.
So far we have 2 comments on
Yeah.
version 3, but it's only been 2 days. So, but yeah, we've received over 100 comments on version 1 and 2.
And you mentioned some of the kind of initial comments about clarifying the purpose of it for being professionals versus homeowners. What's the kind of ratio there of people that, of homeowners looking for additional guidance, or you just kind of refer them? I'm just trying to think if I was a homeowner, like, hey, this could be helpful. And then, how that might play out, or what other resources they could use if they were interested.
Yeah, that's a good question. So often we're able to refer homeowners to the Rainwater Rewards program if they're interested in actually like constructing an SEM or that sort of thing. We do sometimes get folks who are doing projects on their single family house who need to do permitting, and we have staff available who can speak to them and kind of help guide them. That I would say in general, those questions are so all over the place that we haven't. We've tried to address some of them on our website, but usually we speak to people individually.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that the bulk of the comments are for better for worse. They're coming from a group of, it's not even their own kind, but a homeowner association. So much so that we're sort of a meeting in October, just kind of go over what we expect for council meeting. And so that they don't have any comments, which I sincerely doubt, but just FYI, I can't end that off before we're to council, but if there's any other groups or anything like that you guys know of that need to know about this, feel free to submit them, and we're happy to sit down with them and talk about it and go over comments.
Yeah, and I asked for a presentation about it, so if there's a group that
Which CAC you're interested in?
Yeah, all right. Any other questions before I hand things over? All right, I think Chaz is up next.
Thank you, Val.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Chaz Webb. Nice to see everybody again. And so we have two drainage systems projects and one stream stabilization project. An overview of the presentation, we'll go over the drainage systems stormwater program overview, look at the pending projects, project requests, funding overview, recommendations and questions. As always, I like to start off with our mission. I know that we're all familiar with this, but it's preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth within the Raleigh community. Drainage systems program always looks to strive and do that. So again, another refresher, but I know we've got some new members. So in order to qualify, you must own property in Raleigh city limits, have stormwater runoff from public property or street. Be willing to donate a drainage easement. We do not cover nuisance flooding and lot to lot drainage. So we have about 1.25 million in annual funding that is allotted. Oftentimes we're not spending it in this fiscal year, oftentimes in future fiscal years. With that, we fund about 8 projects per year, and funding is based on their ranking in the prioritization model. The 2 projects that we have today for drainage systems are Frank Street and Fairfax Drive. You see 20 projects over here. There's 100 projects on the list. I know we've talked about in previous SMAC meetings about how do we reduce that number, be good stewards to our citizens. And these 2 projects actually are going to show how we are doing it. So the first project that we'll talk about is really 3 projects almost in one. We're combining them as a way to reduce that number. Frank, Watauga, and Clifton Street, east of downtown a little bit, and then Fairfax Drive up in the northeast. And so the first project that we had is 508, 510 Frank Street. That's right here. 508 on the left, 510 on the right. And then we have 1235 Clifton Street and 1232 Watauga Street. And what is going on here is that Frank Street, there is flooding, and you'll see some pictures in the next slides about the flooding that's going on in the structure in the yard. There's a retaining wall right around kind of the border of 510, part of 508, 35 Clifton Street. That's it's in a poor condition to say the least. And then there's a sinkhole at 1232 Watauga Street. And just a zoomed out look, drainage basin is 51 acres. We have a 42-inch pipe that runs through the areas. And so this is 510 Frank Street. You can see the extent of the flooding here in the basement. It floods several times a year. Anytime there's a big heavy rain. Same thing in the yard. It's a lot going on here. This picture on the right is looking from Frank Street to Clifton Street. And this just shows you all the brush, all the shrubs that are in the area that are kind of creating that blockage. Because the water doesn't really have anywhere to go once it hits this point. And so we'd like to kind of clear out those shrubs, put in some pipes for retaining wall. And also Watauga Street, there is a sinkhole going on. We did video the pipe, offsets, joints. Can't really line it, so we'll do a dig and replace. And this picture here with Clifton Street. So this picture on the left is looking from Clifton towards Frank Street, Watauga Street. And you can see the extent of this wall area that is in poor condition. And we've been out there several times. I don't want to say it's in immediate danger of failing, but the residents have expressed a lot of concern about it. They've been here for about 15 years, and they get worried about it each time. This is kind of a different view looking from Frank Street over to Clifton. And again, it shows you just the extent of that failing retaining wall. So when I was talking about kind of merging projects and reducing that backlog, one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to do these separately and then come in a year or two later and then say, repair the sinkhole or talk. That's not being good stewards. That's not being efficient. If we can get a contractor out there at that moment in time and knock out all these projects together, that saves cost for us and that minimizes neighborhood impacts. We're providing less disruption to our citizens. So the solution, the proposed solution would be to replace that ditch, clear that ditch out, replace the retaining wall, about 105 linear feet. We will run hydraulic analysis, just confirm that that is the proposed solution, that will be efficient, but again, we can't spend money on consulting engineers until we have council approval. But that is one of the things that we'll look at. And then dig and replace with the sinkhole and repair the retaining wall on Clifton Springs. So when I was looking through and trying to compare a project, I was thinking this is actually a pretty unique project. We haven't had a project really this complex or in depth. About 2 years ago, we took a project that had Holden Street. Some of you members that have been on the commission for a long may remember that we had a house underneath the pipe that was in poor condition. There was some street flooding. That score is significantly higher. It's about 28% higher than Frank, but it's mainly driven by the public safety because of the condition of that pipe underneath the house and the street flooding. But overall, I say this because while there wasn't a good comparison, so compare Frank to another project, I think this was the best comparison, I think. Hopefully you've seen two things, the extent of the severity of the situation, as well as scoring. And that, our safety factor, which is the majority of the model, is fairly close. So total cost, we're looking at just under $223,000. Again, this is multiple projects. So if we were to kind of break these up a little bit, we would see total probably a higher cost, mainly because we have to put the contractor out there multiple times. Upfront engineering costs with getting the consultant out there. But also we minimize the impacts to the neighborhood. So with that, I'll pause for recommendations, questions, comments.
Any questions? We can vote on these individually.
There was a zoning case just up the stream of this, Clover Lake. Just become aware of it, they were get coalesced around that, and then they said, wow, there's this other program that we could do, is there any burden that's spun off from the developer that's looking for rezoning that?
On
Clover Lane, they were densifying that apartment, I don't know if they got the rezoning approved or not.
It was then.
Okay.
The requirement for them to retain the 100-year storm still be on this property, even on that property, even after we do this work.
Yeah.
So that would maybe go away, but they're not participating in the EA portion of this work. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, just in yeah, exactly, not per se participating, but just go on and yeah. I know the neighbors were up in arms about some things, and the kids, how they talked about the something.
Oddly enough, they were less concerned with the water. That's just me being my slower self, so that really before it's
There's a care about it.
At this point, no calculations have been done.
Right, so staff will try and use our best judgment using the resources and tools that we have. But we can't spend money on a consulting engineer until it is approved by you guys in the subsequent council.
Yeah, I just want, where I'm going with this is downstream pipe is not gonna change size, but you're gonna pipe in between. Level of the head on the pipe. It's still gonna remain the same, so. I'm trying to figure out how you want to improve the flooding in that.
Well, there's So what we've heard from the residents, and residents are often the best indicator, because they've said that, you know, as the brush has gotten worse, the flooding has gotten worse, so. Clear out that brush, replace the retaining wall, and pipe that section.
Do you think that the board's having a hard time getting in?
Yes.
Okay. It's not necessarily fast.
Notice this is the most recent project that we evaluated. Is that right?
So it may have been a recent number because we added, Clifton Street, but these residents on Frank Street have been waiting for a while. They've actually been very patient.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve. Carol? Second. Yeah. All in favor? No opposition, okay?
Next we move on to 1404 Fairfax. We have a simple slide right here. Just a zoomed out look, drainage basin is about 31 acres. And I'm showing these pictures just to kind of give you an extent of the sinkholes, and one, to give a shout out to our friends at Transportation Field Services. They do a lot for us. Obviously we're when they're building. But they help us do investigations. They look for projects that they can possibly do, which helps minimize that backlog that we've been talking about. We are starting to meet every few weeks to see, are there low hanging fruit projects that they can take on, of course. We wouldn't do any of those projects unless we took it to you guys first, but just to know that we are looking at that as we continue to evaluate that plan and reducing the backlog. But you can see the rock here, and the extent of the sinkhole. Now, granted, this rock was put in, and also it's not, you know, completely perpendicular. Now, you can see those handles are essentially the one that are holding it up. Cause of the sinkhole, we believe, coming off this roof drain. And, this often covered, right here is often covered, so the water has to go somewhere, so we believe it's infiltrating there as well. So the solution would be to use our partners with TFS, grab clay soil material, and also reroute that roof drain into the catch basin. So as far as the scoring is concerned, excuse me, we had Foxtrot, which had a sinkhole a little bit further away from the house, so you can see that the public safety criteria went up a little bit. Overall scores are generally the same, so it's fairly consistent with the scoring. This probably will be the most simple, straightforward cost that I take to you guys. And it is $5,000 because TFS has agreed to do the work. They have been out there multiple times. And the $5,000 comes from cost to survey a lot, which is based off our on-call surveying contract that we've had on a few other projects. So they quoted that as $4,000, so I just rounded it up to 5,000, just a little contingency in case something happens. But they would secure the easement, and then TFS would do the work. So with that, I'll stop for questions, comments, questions.
I had a question about the comparison, to, I think it was Foxtrot, and the other. Let me just go back, yeah, to Foxtrot. I was just wondering why the water quality benefits with Foxtrot were so much higher, what the differences were in the, approach there that made up for that.
Often that has to do with the watershed, which watershed you're in. Now I know there's watershed management different benefits, which is on the next slide, but one of the water quality benefits factors that we use that we're looking at is which watershed are you.
Or drainage, that's your rendering, this doesn't have to be owner occupied in a situation or it doesn't. This looks like it's owned by an LLC, so it's an investment home of some sort, or possibly for their family, but just, we don't have any requirements at all in that situation, right?
So we did talk to the tenant there to get them on board, and we do have a signed consent form. from them to donate the easement. Now, we would have to coordinate, of course, with the LLC. But they are willing to donate an easement, yes.
The LLC is probably.
Yes, because we have talked to them.
Any other questions? We have a motion to approve. Luann, second. Josh. All in favor? No opposition. Okay.
Long ago.
Yeah, gotcha.
Thank you. So now we move on to our one stream stabilization, program project. Same overview as agenda of these slides and format are gonna look very familiar, so we'll just move on to the next slide. I've already talked about our mission. The mission still applies to the stream stabilization program. Definitely let's support that as well. Again, this slide looks very familiar as the last one with the drainage systems. The one thing I'll point out is willingness to donate a conservation easement on the drainage systems. It's a drainage easement. And again, we don't cover lots of lot drainage. We have $250,000 in annual funding. Now, I will point out that we are working on that backlog of funding. You may recall that we had funding approved for fiscal year 2023. And we, in that fiscal year, we were working on developing the policy. We finally took a few projects. So we do have some backlog that we're working through in terms of funds. But with that, we're still approving about 5 projects per year that we'll take through. We'll see that in the last slide, some of that carryover of the CIP funds. Quail Ridge, this looks familiar, but this is just a stream erosion projects that are broken out. And see again now it's just separating out the stream project location maps, and you can see Quail Ridge northeast, a little bit west of US 1 in the marsh. And so we have 2208, which is on the bottom, and 2212, which is on the top. And we have stream erosion that is getting fairly close to the properties. It has increased throughout the years, not by a lot, but as we see with a lot of stream erosion cases, upstream development, increased impervious, increased water flows, increased erosion, gets worse over time. You can see that this is a little bit southwest of Spring Forest Road. And again, an area that has developed a little bit. And so these are the pictures looking south to 2208. And you can see kind of the extent of the erosion. It's again getting worse over time. According to the owner, this was moved a couple feet over the last few years closer to the home. You can see kind of getting pretty close to that fence. But again, our main concern is the proximity to the home. Here's another look. This gives you this picture on the bottom right here gives you another look to the other side, because both homeowners are willing to participate. And that's great, because one of the things that we sometimes run into is there's only erosion on one side of the stream where both owners don't want to participate. And I'm sure you can understand that when you go in and you repair streams, you want to repair both sides. If you just make repairs to one side, eventually over time, you're going to have issues on the other side. May not be immediate, but it's going to likely happen over time. So this is kind of a mix. We would prefer always to use slope vegetation, but if you saw on those pictures with the fences that were almost falling into the stream, you're not gonna be able to use slope vegetation at that point, because then you're gonna be sloping right in that. So armor with a retaining wall, kind of riprap as we get closer to the house, and then there is some erosion that's going on downstream, which meets more of the intent of the program. when we took the stream stabilization program to you guys about 2 years ago, we also wanted to highlight the full intent of the stream stabilization program, and that was water quality benefits. So when you can silver back and use that still vegetation, then you're also increasing the water quality. So Kelly Court, compare this with Kelly Court, that was the one you may remember where they almost had the utilities falling in. So public health and safety, that is a little bit lower, just because it wasn't as close to the home as it is. But there's still, significant public health and safety, issue here. Again, as we go through, scores, community support and complexity about the same. The safety criticality score, which if you haven't figured out, is actually just a public health and safety score, it's about 10. That's the main, but that is the main driver of the model. And then the soil product score is about the same, Low Ridge, or a little bit higher, which I would agree with this assessment. So overall, we're looking at a cost of about $148,000. So with that, I'll stop for questions, comments.
Questions, check. I have a motion to approve. Matt, second. Carol, all in favor? All right, no opposition. Thanks, Jack. All right, so, you see at the end of the agenda, just some preliminary topics for our October meeting. Do you have any comments on that, Scott?
We may have to scale back on those items, potentially just based on. But certainly we want to bring back camp on day or further review of that recommendation under the latest policy. I think there were 7 million rewards projects, adjustment team, we're coming back in full force on that one, looking forward to that. And an update from the Upper News River Basin Association, so it might be the rezoning conditions, potentially presidential, this pushback, it's more general information about how Sally and Pigeon team help with that process, on provide options for developers that they might bring forward. Part of that rezoning process, so potentially that one would be moved to November. The only other item we've got is a request for an updated photo of the commission. Say that outside. That's going to be afterwards turn. And thank you all so much for your engagement. We'll return some excellent work plans and reports for you. Thanks for your support and all that.
So, Shannon, will it be updated and then email to us?
Yes, and that's just as soon as you can, but first the work plan and the reports we can put together. And if there's time as long as that one, we'll certainly be glad to attend to those. Really email needs to be further.
Anything else from the commission? Motion to adjourn? Carol? Second.
I didn't look too enthusiastic.
Okay. All in favor to adjourn? Very good. All right.